My brother-in-law passed away in a car accident, and my husband and I adopted his child. I truly believed I did my best for her, giving her everything my own daughter had. Never did I expect to raise such an ungrateful wretch. She deliberately interfered in my daughter's marriage during her pregnancy, ultimately driving my daughter to her death. Later, although I avenged my daughter in my own way, I also suffered 10 years in prison as a result. When I woke up again, I had gone back in time. My mother-in-law was trying to persuade us to adopt this born troublemaker. No, absolutely not. In this life, I will definitely protect my daughter at all costs. If gods stand in my way, I'll slay the gods. If Buddhas block my path, I'll cut down the Buddhas. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. When I woke up again, I found myself back in the past, in the spacious living room. My mother-in-law was sprawled on the sofa, wailing and lamenting. Your younger brother has always been obedient since childhood. When you weren't home, it was always your brother who took care of everything. What a good child. How could they suddenly get into a car accident? The mother-in-law wiped her tears with her hand, her grief turning into bitterness. Your sister-in-law is truly heartless, leaving the child behind and going back to her parents' home. Yes, she's not even 30 yet. And we can't expect her to stay loyal to your brother. It's just pitiful for Eileen, only 10 years old, having lost her father and now her mother. She wailed for a long time before lifting her eyes to look at us. I pretended not to see, while my husband Barry wore a blank expression. My husband has been an honest man all his life. Aside from sighing and handing tissues, he couldn't utter a single word. The mother-in-law realized she couldn't count on this blockhead anymore. So she decided to get straight to the point. Your father and I are getting old, and we don't know if we'll live to see the day when Eileen grows up. If Eileen isn't raised properly, how could your father and I face your younger brother after we die? Son, after much thought, Eileen can only be entrusted to you. You're her uncle, and with your good living conditions, you certainly won't treat her poorly. Another thing, you only have Giselle as your daughter. Raising one more wouldn't be much trouble. After speaking, my mother-in-law looked at Barry with expectant eyes, and I finally realized. So I had been reborn 1 month after my brother-in-law's car accident. My brother-in-law's accident was due to drunk driving, making him the at-fault party. Not only did we receive no compensation for his death, but we also had to pay the other party a large sum. After the funeral, my sister-in-law went straight back to her parents' home, leaving only the child behind. In my previous life, my mother-in-law also used persistent persuasion like this to get us to adopt the child. At the time, though reluctant, I also felt sorry for a 10-year-old child who had lost both parents. So I half-heartedly agreed. I can say I treated her well. She had everything my daughter had, and even things my daughter didn't have, just to avoid any perception of favoritism. Little did I know she had always been jealous of my daughter. While my daughter was pregnant, she deliberately seduced her husband. She caused my daughter's tragic death at home, with both mother and unborn child lost. Afterwards, she even had the nerve to say that although we adopted her, she never had a single comfortable day in our home. She claimed we always treated her differently. She said our biological daughter could spend on expensive art and dance lessons, while she only attended a vocational school. The daughter owns several properties, but she doesn't have a single one. She never considers that when we signed them up for tutoring classes, we enrolled both her and the daughter together. It was her own choice to quit. She complained dancing was too hard and painting too boring, making a fuss until she stopped attending. It's also because she didn't study hard that she failed to get into university. The house and all these things were left to my daughter by my parents. Could it be that she wants to fight for this too? After all we've done, all we got from her was an accusation of favoritism. When I saw my daughter lying on the ground covered in blood, I hated myself for being so naive and forgiving. If I hadn't relented back then, my daughter wouldn't have met such a tragic end. Now that I've been given a chance to start over, my top priority is to protect my daughter. I'll never let that born troublemaker set foot in my home again. I was still thinking when my mother-in-law continued speaking. Back when our family was struggling and couldn't afford to support both of you, your younger brother didn't hesitate to go out and work so you could go to college, eldest son. The success you have today is all because of your younger brother. You mustn't be ungrateful." My husband seemed pumped up as if he'd been brainwashed. Mom, don't worry, I'll treat Eileen as my own daughter. Tomorrow I'll bring Eileen home." Barry was making solemn promises when I suddenly interrupted. "No, I don't agree. Eileen's mother is still alive and hasn't explicitly stated she doesn't want Eileen anymore. It wouldn't be appropriate for us to just take her in directly. Besides, raising a child is a huge responsibility. It's not like taking care of a cat or a dog. Mom and Dad, you're not that old yet, and Eileen would be well taken care of by you. If we had the ability, we'd definitely help out a bit. To be honest, my in-laws are quite amusing. They favor the younger son over Barry. Their eldest, naturally. They also prefer the younger son's wife over me, the elder son's wife. When my sister-in-law had a baby, my mother-in-law not only gave tens of thousands but also took care of everything, providing all the baby's formula and diapers. But when I gave birth to my daughter, they used their age as an excuse. Not only did they not come to help, they barely even asked about it. I'm not a petty person, nor did I expect anything from them. As long as Barry is wholeheartedly committed to our life together, all these things are just passing clouds. But I didn't expect that the first one to jump out and contradict me right after I finished speaking would be Barry. "Elsa, how could you say that? Eileen's mother is exactly the kind of person you know she is. The moment her son died, she returned to her parents' home. She'll definitely remarry later, and we can't possibly let her take our family's child to another household. Besides, Eileen is just a child who doesn't eat much. Think of it as raising a second child. A second child. She doesn't share a single drop of blood relation with me anyway. Barry, this person's biggest flaw is always feeling indebted to his family. He believes that since he got to attend university while his younger brother didn't, he owes his brother something, but he never stops to consider, with his brother's academic performance, could he even have gotten into college? That younger brother's brainpower is such that he could doze off while tightening screws at the factory and end up wrecking machinery worth hundreds of thousands, listening to audiobooks at work, drinking and playing mahjong after work. Every morning starts with a shot of liquor to get through the day, otherwise, he just can't function. His drunk driving really was a fitting end for him. Barry, when he got into college, his parents didn't pay a single cent. His tuition was covered by student loans, which he paid off himself after graduation, and yet, he still thinks his family treated him incredibly well. I really don't want to label him as a mama's boy or a brother's keeper, yet his behavior fits the description perfectly. His mother shed a few tears in front of him, and he immediately agreed to adopt a child without even discussing it with me. A cold smirk curled at the corner of my lips. "Anyway, I don't agree. If you really want to keep it, then I'll just go back to my parents' home with Giselle. You figure it out yourself." After hearing this, the mother-in-law spat in disgust. People really do abandon you when you're no longer useful. And this is coming from his own uncle and aunt. Your brother just died, and now Eileen has become a burden. Aren't you afraid people will point fingers at you? After she finished speaking, she started panting heavily, as if she might keel over any second. Barry was so startled that he immediately started patting her back to calm her down. "Elsa, that's enough. Look how angry you've made Mom. That's my own brother's child. I quietly watched my mother-in-law perform. You treat him like a brother, but has he ever treated you like one? When you broke your bone a few months ago, did your brother even ask once? Has he ever visited our daughter when she was sick? Besides, I only disagreed with bringing him into our home. Do I have any say in how you help him otherwise?" My mother-in-law couldn't sit still the moment I mentioned her favorite youngest son. Her finger was practically poking my face. "Enough, you two are putting on an act in front of me. Going through all this trouble just because you don't want to take care of him. Your father and I aren't dead yet. We'll raise him ourselves." After speaking, the mother-in-law slammed the door and went into the bedroom. Barry chased after her a few steps, only to have the door slammed in his face. leaving him looking quite displeased. "Elsa, how could you talk to Mom like that? Eileen is my own niece. If I don't take care of her, wouldn't people gossip?" I shot him an annoyed glance. "Who has nothing better to do than obsess over your family's messy affairs? Besides, life is lived for oneself. Did you even discuss with me before bringing another child into this household? Did you consider Giselle's feelings at all, before, when he willingly played the role of a brother supporter and secretly gave money to his younger brother? I didn't interfere. But now that it's threatening the livelihood of me and our child, I absolutely refuse to agree." I had intended to privately tell him about the rebirth and share my concerns. Now, seeing his gloomy face, I no longer feel like saying anything. After that, Barry made several more attempts, but I never agreed. He stubbornly believed that my refusal to let him adopt Eileen was simply selfishness. If I were truly selfish, why would I have pretended not to know when he was openly or secretly supporting his family before? I just didn't want to put my daughter in danger. I know exactly what my mother-in-law is scheming. Doesn't she just want Eileen to be like my own daughter and inherit our family's assets in the future? It's laughable. How much of the family's belongings actually belong to Barry? They're all dowry gifts from my parents. Long before marriage, seeing her calculating demeanor, I had already done the property notarization to avoid being taken advantage of by some scumbag. Do they really think us only daughters from well-off families are fools? Because of this incident, I initiated a cold war with Barry. I thought by now, Barry's family would have given up on the adoption idea. I never expected that just a week later, right after getting off work, I would see Eileen at home, past and present lives. I see this face once again. I could hardly resist the urge to tear her apart. In my previous life, it was just like this. With that innocent face, she step by step pushed my daughter into the abyss. Eileen took a few steps back in fear upon seeing my gaze, speaking with a hint of grievance. "Does Auntie not like me? Eileen did something wrong. I can change. Please don't dislike me." Barry hurried out from the kitchen upon hearing this, still wearing an apron. "Eileen, you're mistaken. How could Auntie not like you?" Barry then pulled me aside. "Mom's been having leg pain these days. Let Eileen stay with us for a few days." He forced a smile, took my bag off my shoulder, and gave me a massage. "Honey, just do it for my sake. Eileen just lost her father and is feeling really down." I rolled my eyes inwardly. This was definitely Barry's parents' idea. Finding an excuse to dump Eileen at our place. If I give in even slightly, Eileen will probably end up staying here forever. I really wanted to send her away immediately. But I was afraid of being too confrontational and damaging my relationship with Barry. Although he was blindly filial, he was still good to me and our daughter. I decided to endure it for now and wait for the right opportunity. An hour later, my daughter came back and was thrilled to see this older sister. Constantly pestering Eileen to play with her, things were inevitably moving in the direction of the previous life, and I was so terrified that I couldn't sit or sleep peacefully. Before my eyes were two little girls playing innocently, yet my mind was filled with images of my daughter lying in a pool of blood in her past life. As long as Eileen appeared near my daughter, I didn't dare to take my eyes off them for a second, fearing that something terrible might happen in this life. I must change my daughter's naive nature. Something happened before I could act. I was coming home from work and hadn't even entered the door when I heard my daughter crying. I hurriedly opened the door to find my daughter standing alone, Eileen covering her face and leaning on Barry. Barry angrily scolded my daughter. Seeing me, my daughter immediately rushed over, crying and saying that Dad had wronged her. Seeing my daughter's tear-stained little face, my heart ached unbearably. A sharp glare immediately shot toward Eileen, the troublemaker who had turned our household upside down. "Look at your own spoiled daughter. So young yet with such a vicious mind. Look how Eileen got scalded." Barry pointed at Eileen's red marks on her face, pushing her in front of me. Eileen said her daughter told her to get out immediately, to leave her own home. "Did you say something to our daughter that made her learn to play tricks at such a young age? You don't like Eileen, I know that. You could have told me." But what's the meaning of instigating your daughter to hurt someone? I pushed away the pitiful-looking Eileen, afraid I might lose control and slap her other cheek red the next second. No need to ask why. I already knew it must be Eileen's doing. I had Barry and Eileen explain what happened first, and I kept stopping my daughter whenever she tried to interrupt. The two of them played off each other, saying their daughter and Eileen were watching TV in the living room when they got into an argument over changing the channel. The daughter said this was her and her mother's home, and she wanted to kick Eileen out, even splashing hot water on Eileen's face. I chuckled inwardly. If my daughter were that capable, I'd give her a round of applause. In my previous life, I wouldn't have ended up being killed by Eileen, Barry continued, saying that not only did his daughter refuse to admit her mistake, but she also falsely accused Eileen of pouring water on her own face. Barry saw that his daughter remained unrepentant and slapped her. She's only a few years old now and already knows how to lie. I watched Barry stomp his feet in frustration, suspecting that the glass of water had been poured straight into his brain. We made a pact from the moment our daughter was born: no physical punishment, only communication and guidance when she makes mistakes. My daughter, whom I've cherished since she was little, is someone I wouldn't lay a finger on. How dare a grown man lay hands on such a fragile little girl? Finished talking, I suppressed my anger and looked at Barry. Barry nodded. I raised my hand, mustered all my strength, and slapped him. This slap is for you hitting Giselle without asking for an explanation. I turned to my stunned daughter. Giselle, remember this: if anyone dares to bully you, you fight back. No one is an exception. Barry, perhaps stung in his male pride by that slap, immediately stood up and grabbed my arm fiercely. His eyes reddened with anger. This house belongs to you two women, doesn't it? Eileen can't stay, and neither can I. I smiled. What do you think? Who's the outsider in this family? Don't you have any idea what exactly happened? Giselle, you tell us. I shook off Barry's hand and gave my daughter an encouraging look. Mom, it's my sister who's framing me. I wanted to change the channel, but my sister wouldn't let me. She was the one who spilled the water, and she even said she'd kick me and Mom out. I sneered at the innocent act put on by Eileen. There's surveillance in the living room. Why don't we just check the footage to see what really happened? I clearly saw Eileen tremble at these words, her face turning pale with fear. She stepped out from behind Barry and said with forced generosity, Uncle, Auntie, it's all right. I know my little sister didn't mean it, so please don't punish her. What a joke. Ever since Eileen moved in on the second day, I've installed surveillance cameras all over the house. I've been waiting for this day, ignoring Eileen's attempts to stop me. I went ahead and turned on the surveillance footage. Barry's expression was both awkward and comical when he saw Eileen pour hot water on her own face in the footage. After all, even adults can't help but cry out in pain when scalded. Yet this little girl was grinning maniacally at my daughter while pouring it on herself. Barry didn't believe Eileen, a mere child, would resort to such tactics of false accusation. Somewhat hesitantly, he spoke up. Could there be some misunderstanding in this? Eileen, realizing she had been exposed, immediately fell to her knees with a thud. I'm sorry, Uncle, I'm sorry, Auntie, I didn't mean to. I just wanted you to pay more attention to me. It's my fault. I was jealous that my sister has Mom and Dad's love, but I don't have a father. And Mom doesn't want me either. I just wanted you to love me a little more. Barry was initially still angry, but upon hearing these words, he felt a pang of heartache. He pulled Eileen up from the ground. Darling, since the matter has been clarified, let's leave it at that for now. Eileen is still young, and she didn't mean to do it. After all, the child has lost her parents to teach her. If we raise her by our side and guide her properly, she'll surely improve. What do you think? I didn't respond, Barry. I was just reminded of my past life when Eileen, after causing our daughter's death, knelt on the ground in the same pitiful manner, begging for my forgiveness. She said she had always resented why our daughter received so much more love from us, even though we had adopted her. In our hearts, our daughter's position was always ahead of hers. That malicious face overlapped with the 10-year-old Eileen before me. I couldn't help but blurt out, You asked why my sister receives so much love from us, didn't you? Because she's my biological daughter. She was born into this family and deserves a smooth life. I won't allow anyone to harm her." Barry seemed startled by my words and stopped me disapprovingly. "Honey, that's too harsh. Eileen is only 10 years old. What does she understand? How can an adult like you be so petty with a child?" I looked at Barry with deep disappointment. He's supposed to be Giselle's father, yet he doesn't even stand up for his own daughter. From the very beginning, he wronged his daughter without even asking for the facts, and now, knowing full well that she's been wronged, he turns a blind eye, only caring about his niece. I'm so disappointed. I stared into Barry's eyes and said word by word, "Barry, it was Eileen who bullied Giselle first, bullied your own daughter. I'm giving you one last chance. Send her away. I can't keep such a hidden bomb around my daughter." As I expected, Barry didn't agree. Looking at his pleading eyes that hesitated to speak, I knew this relationship might have reached its end. The moment I was reborn, I made up my mind. In this life, I will surely protect my daughter at all costs. Anyone who harms my daughter will be dealt with, even if that person is her own father. Ever since my brother-in-law passed away, his attitude toward me and our daughter has changed over these past few months. Before, I admired Barry for working independently and thinking for himself. Although he financially supported our parents, emotionally, he was detached from his original family. Now, in his heart, the status of us, mother and child, has already fallen behind that family struck by misfortune. I can understand how sudden disasters can trigger overwhelming sympathy, Barry, and how emotions in the heat of the moment might lead to actions that harm the interests of me and our child. But the moment the scales tip out of balance, the stability of this family will cease to exist. I closed my eyes for a moment, straightened my daughter's clothes, and sat down on the sofa holding her. Calmly, I said to Barry, "Let's get a divorce." Barry widened his eyes. "You're divorcing me over this?" "Yes, precisely over this. I won't allow my daughter to have a biological father who remains indifferent when she's bullied." The daughter was terrified upon hearing the word divorce, thinking it was because of her that her parents were separating. "Mom, Dad, I was wrong. Please don't get divorced. I promise I won't tattle anymore, and I won't fight with my sister. Please don't get divorced. Eileen, after all, she's just a child and was also frightened by the mention of divorce. Uncle, Aunt, please don't get divorced. I beg you." As she spoke, she began kneeling on the ground again, kowtowing to me. Barry, seeing this scene, seemed to recall something and abruptly pulled Eileen up from the ground. "Eileen, let's go. If this family doesn't welcome us, we'll leave." The final outcome was Barry storming off in anger, taking his beloved niece with him as they left home. That night, I told my daughter many stories, tales of the farmer and the snake, of inviting a wolf into one's home. The daughter was first exposed to the ugly side of human nature and found it hard to accept. Barry initially thought I was just trying to scare him. Little did he expect that the day after he left, I would send him the divorce agreement via email. And only then did he realize I was serious. He hurried back home to beg me not to divorce him. I said okay, on the condition that we couldn't adopt his niece. Then he looked at me with an especially inscrutable expression and said, "My mom was right. You're an especially heartless woman." I parted ways with Barry on bad terms. Right after this separation, I didn't see Barry for many days. It wasn't until a week later, just as I arrived home and was about to open the door, Eileen suddenly rushed out from nowhere, plopping down to kneel before me again, kowtowing with loud thuds. While kowtowing, she kept pleading, "Auntie, please, I beg you, don't get divorced with Uncle," because the force was so strong. Within just a few strikes, Eileen's forehead was covered in bruises. Then she began slapping her own face repeatedly. Just as I was horrified by this scene, Barry suddenly appeared. He held Eileen in his arms, scolding me for laying hands on a child just a few years old. I originally wanted to maintain this family for the sake of our many years of marriage, but now it seems there's no need to keep it anymore. He said even if I don't file for divorce, he would. Finally Barry pulled Eileen away, and Eileen gave me a malicious, triumphant smile. I have to say, I actually feel like giving a big thumbs up, really grateful for her divisive tactics that helped Barry and me successfully get divorced. After getting the divorce certificate, I took my daughter out for a big meal. When I got back to my doorstep, I saw a pile of junk stacked in the hallway. I thought it was Barry who was moving and organizing things, but the more I looked, the more the items resembled mine and Giselle's. The front door was wide open. Eileen was still inside working. "Auntie, since you're already divorced from my uncle, hurry up and move out. Don't delay the new auntie from moving in. I've already packed your luggage for you. From now on, little sister's bedroom will be mine." I couldn't help but laugh out loud. No wonder she repeatedly tried to drive a wedge between me and Barry, orchestrating a series of shady maneuvers to push us toward divorce. So this is where it all stemmed from. Pity that someone so young could be so scheming, yet so ignorant of the law. I married Barry right after graduation. At that time, Barry had no money, and his parents refused to buy him a house or a car. So the house we live in now was bought by my parents for me, including the rental property in the West District, which was also part of my dowry. Now that we're divorced, naturally, he's the one who has to leave. I made one call to the police and another to Barry. Half an hour later, everyone had arrived. Barry led Eileen as they were taken to the police station for questioning on charges of illegal trespassing into a residence. Eileen, being under the age of 14, was exempt from administrative detention. The police said it was a minor punishment for a major lesson, ordering the two of them to restore everything in the house to its original state. After all this drama, Barry was utterly humiliated. In the end, he couldn't face me and Giselle, leaving with nothing. At first, my daughter woke up startled several times at night, but over time she adapted. In this lifetime, I didn't just teach my daughter to be gentle and kind. I also taught her to have an edge. She has to accept the fact that not everyone will love her unconditionally, neither family nor men. My daughter and I are doing fine. Barry is causing trouble again. Barry's parents live in an old 2-bedroom apartment. Before, his parents took the master bedroom. Eileen stayed in the smaller one, divorced and left with nothing. Barry was completely rejected by his family. He quietly set up a small bed in the living room by himself, putting it away during the day and taking it out again at night. This was a world apart from his previous living conditions. He never had to worry about anything before. There was always a delicious meal waiting for him at home, and I would iron his clothes and hang them in the wardrobe. Money was never a concern for him either, since aside from our salaries, we also had rental subsidies. Financially stress-free, life was quite comfortable. But ever since Barry came home, he's been working like an old ox. His parents don't feel sorry for him at all. They're still counting on squeezing some retirement money out of him. Now he has to cook for his parents after work every day, do the dishes after cooking, and mop the floor after washing the dishes. Never a moment to himself, not to mention all the household expenses, which fall entirely on his shoulders. And despite all this, his parents still find fault with everything. Eileen still delusionally tried to persuade Barry to move back into the big house. When she found out the house was mine, she was completely dumbfounded. Half a year after the divorce, Barry seemed to be having some regrets. We've run into each other near my place more than once. I naturally knew what he was thinking. In just a few short months, he had become almost unrecognizable from his former self. He used to be always neat and energetic, but now he was unshaven with messy hair. The clothes were the same as before, but now they were crumpled and untidy. He rambled on about his life after the divorce, trying to win my sympathy, but I have no intention of getting back together. During these days apart, I recalled many details from our past life that I had deliberately forgotten. After our daughter was killed, Eileen knelt on the ground begging for my forgiveness. Barry was heartbroken. He said our daughter was too sensitive and that it wasn't Eileen's fault. They even drafted Eileen a letter of forgiveness. A man like him is simply unworthy of being a father. After I rejected him, Barry left with his head down. He came back several times later, even buying pretty clothes for his daughter specially. It's just a pity that my daughter had already seen through his true nature and no longer wanted to maintain a father-daughter relationship with him. Barry returned in dejection. After the divorce, I poured all my energy into my career and my daughter's education. Seeing my daughter successfully admitted to a top junior high school should have been a joyous occasion. After studying for over half a year, her grades inexplicably dropped. I asked her the reason several times, but my daughter hesitated and wouldn't say. I thought maybe my daughter had entered adolescence, possibly had an early crush, or became more emotionally sensitive. Although her grades worsened, I tried my best to understand her. After all, it's the age when love's first bloom begins, until a video of school bullying went viral, and I could have slapped myself twice in regret. The one being pressed against the frozen flower bed in the middle of the video, with snow water poured over her head, was my daughter, surrounded by 3 or 5 girls who laughed and jeered while holding her down and tearing at her clothes. The leader held a sharp ice pick in his hand, stabbing the daughter repeatedly. "How do you like it? I froze this especially for you. I could kill you with this and no one would catch me. Ha 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 ha. Who would believe the murder weapon could just vanish?" The video was filled with nothing but vile language across the screen. What's even more detestable is that wretched woman actually pointed the ice pick towards her daughter's private parts. Unconsciously, tears streamed down my face. I simply couldn't bear to watch any longer. I wiped my face and searched for the publisher's information. The video was shot from a hidden angle, and the person who exposed it didn't dare to reveal anything. Only the school's location was shared, along with one sentence. "Why do I feel less and less like going to school?" I privately messaged the blogger, explaining that the person in the video was my daughter, and asked for their help in gathering evidence. Then I drove to my daughter's school and brought her home. While gently guiding the conversation, I showed my daughter a screenshot from the video. With just one glance, her tears began to stream down uncontrollably, but she no longer threw herself into my arms for comfort like she did as a child. Unable to resist, I pulled her close and gently stroked her back. "Mom, you always taught me to be strong, but I still couldn't handle it. I don't know why they bully me. I wanted to fight back, but there were too many of them. I thought I could handle it myself. I didn't want to worry you." My daughter and I hugged each other and cried bitterly, feeling as if our hearts were being cut by knives. I only wanted to prevent her from becoming a naive and innocent girl like in her past life. So I kept instilling in her the need to be strong, but once again, I misapplied my efforts. I wanted her to learn to be strong for self-protection, not to feign strength and bear everything alone. It's mom's fault for not teaching you something even more important. When you encounter a problem you can't solve, you must learn to ask for help. This matter must be addressed properly. The next day, I took the medical examination report and went to the school with my daughter. I found the homeroom teacher and the dean to report the bullying incident at school. They took the report, glanced at it, and exchanged looks. They actually left together, leaving me and my daughter alone in the office, after waiting for half an hour. The dean returned with an apologetic expression. "This parent, we care for every child, but there's no way to prove this incident happened at our school." The homeroom teacher said they usually get along well. Maybe it was just some roughhousing among the kids. These injuries might not necessarily have been caused this way. My temper flared up instantly. I couldn't help slamming the injury report on the table. "You call this a child's play fight?" I wanted nothing more than to slap that bald department head. His face was the spitting image of the sarcastic dean from my school days. "The bullying video is already trending. Doesn't that prove anything?" I pulled out my phone to search my bookmarks. Gone. That bullying video that was trending has actually disappeared. I checked the blogger's homepage from my private messages list, and the account has been set to private. "Madam, please calm down. Don't get emotional. How can you take online things seriously? You parents are just spending too much time scrolling through short videos. That's why you're neglecting your children's education." Some students are also victims of the toxic online environment at such a young age. Instead of focusing on their studies, they're busy stirring up trouble all day long. I'm so angry I could laugh. I understand this whole ridiculous maneuver all too well. The school must have secretly tracked down that student to delete the video, all to protect its reputation. Fine, you want to sweep things under the rug, but I'm determined to make a scene back at home. I had my daughter compile a list of bullies and a timeline of incidents, from the first bullying incident in the first semester of 7th grade to being bullied once every week or two recently. Among the list of bullies, there it was, Eileen. Afraid that the events of the previous life would repeat, I mobilized all the resources at my disposal to thoroughly investigate the entire matter. I scrutinized every one of my daughter's friends, trying to find the student who had uploaded the video back then, but suddenly, my daughter said she didn't want to pursue the investigation any further. She wanted to transfer schools. Rather than being looked at with strange eyes every day, it's better to leave. Most importantly, her best friend is also leaving. I invited her friends and parents to our home as guests. When the topic of school bullying came up, their expressions changed, and they all kept silent. I suddenly realized that the truth I had been desperately searching for was right in front of me. After repeated questioning, the boy finally couldn't take it anymore. Dad, Mom, I've really had enough. I didn't do anything wrong. So why should we leave without a word just because the school expelled me? It's the bullies who should be punished. The boy's parents looked at me with apologetic expressions, continuously offering their apologies. The school traced the IP to the dormitory. It's not that we didn't want to help. We spent all our money to get our child into such a good school. Ben, this kid, he's always wanted to be a hero since he was little, but being a hero isn't that easy. Among those troublemaking students was the daughter of the Dean of Academics. She's the beloved granddaughter of the Deputy Director of the Education Bureau. Dean Chen threatened us, saying we wouldn't be able to attend any school in the entire City. We're taking Ben back to our hometown. I had no idea City's Education Bureau had such a deputy director. I called my father, who had just retired to a secondary position, and he confirmed the matter. Ben's parents. It shouldn't be you who leaves. The bad guys should pay for this. As parents, we should be the ones to shelter our children. If we all back down, how can our children keep hoping for tomorrow? Ben nodded and quickly took out his phone. I'll listen to Auntie. Actually, I still have a lot of evidence. Director Chen often secretly gropes female students' butts. Later, those female students mysteriously transferred away. I originally wanted to post it online to continue exposing him. But the school threatened me, saying if I did anything else to damage the school's reputation,
and made a mistake. They told everyone they met that their Eileen was innocent. They spent their life savings asking Barry to pull some strings and transfer Eileen to a private school in a neighboring city. The students at that school were all from wealthy or influential families, and Eileen, being too poor, became the target of bullying. In order to take revenge on one of the bullies, she actually teamed up with a group of delinquents from outside the school and gang-raped the girl. What was initially thought to be a minor scheme turned into an unexpected tragedy. The girl, who had brought a knife to defend herself, was accidentally killed by the enraged delinquents during the struggle. The girl's parents were furious. Being high-ranking officials from a neighboring city, they demanded severe punishment. Under immense pressure, within just 3 days, the entire group of delinquents was apprehended. Eileen was also exposed. With a prior record of school bullying that had been leniently handled last time, she couldn't escape punishment this time. The incident was extremely severe as it resulted in a death. The victim's family refused all mediation and demanded a heavy sentence. Barry, as the guardian, was ordered to pay $2 million in compensation. However, the victim's family dismissed the financial compensation, demanding only that Eileen be locked away for life. This born troublemaker, having committed crimes without remorse, should be subjected to intensive rehabilitation by the state. Eileen's status as a minor could no longer protect her, and she was sentenced to 10 years in prison as a severe punishment. At the age of blooming youth, they can only spend their days sewing in prison. The person can't be saved anymore, but the money still has to be repaid. Barry is penniless and can't even come up with 100,000 yuan now, let alone 2 million. In desperation, he actually thought of me. Elsa, consider it a loan from you. Okay, I just need 500,000. Barry made it sound as simple as asking for $50. I refused with a cold expression. How did he even have the nerve to ask? Has she forgotten what Eileen did to my daughter half a year ago? If you have the guts to cause trouble, then solve it yourself. I can't wait to see Eileen locked up. Because I refused to help, Barry's mother even came to my doorstep to scold me harshly, calling me heartless and saying I wouldn't lift a finger to save someone in need. I just locked her out and let her go crazy on her own. I couldn't be more amused by their antics. Barry borrowed from all his friends but only managed to get $300,000. There was no other way. Barry's parents had to sell their old house, of course. At first they were unwilling, still counting on Barry. But later, seeing that Barry was truly out of options, and the girl's parents came to their house every day causing trouble. Barry's father was timid and had several heart attacks from the fright. They had no choice but to sell the house. Now the family had no fixed abode and could only rent a place to live. Barry finally realized that Eileen was nothing but trouble. Whoever crossed her path would suffer misfortune. Yet every time she caused trouble at school, she would come home and pitifully sob about it. She claimed that because she had no parents, all her classmates bullied her. Barry wanted to educate Eileen, but his parents wouldn't allow it. They always protected Eileen. They felt she was the last bloodline of their beloved youngest son. They blamed Barry for choosing a bad school, which led to Eileen experiencing such things. Barry was completely disappointed with the whole family, but the money still had to be compensated. In the end, he took out a large loan online to barely scrape together $2 million. After that, he left for another city, and his parents could no longer find him. Before leaving, he came to see me once and bought a lot of food for my daughter. He now realizes just how terribly wrong he was. If he had known things would come to this, he would never have taken in that child in the first place. Now he's hundreds of thousands in debt, and there's no hope of catching his breath for the rest of his life. I looked at this man, battered and scarred by life, and sighed. Believe it or not, I've dreamt of our past lives. In our previous life, we wholeheartedly adopted Eileen, but Eileen took advantage of Giselle's pregnancy, destroyed her family, and even caused her death. Barry listened in shock, recalling the downhill days of recent years, his eyes reddening. After Barry left, his parents, seeing they had no source of income, had no choice but to go back to work. His mother found a job cleaning houses for others. His father also took up work as a security guard. Though the pay wasn't much, it was better than nothing. It was only later that I heard Eileen had been released, and she found them embarrassing, always making a fuss. Eileen had no proper education, and after her release, she became a mistress just like in her previous life, but unfortunately, she was discovered by the original wife, and her face was beaten out of shape. Later, she ended up as a female corpse in a filthy ditch, bringing an end to her brief and sinful life. My parents had no money or support, and life was extremely difficult. They even came looking for me, wanting my daughter to support them in their old age. It scared me so much that I took my daughter and moved to another city the very next day. My daughter is about to graduate from college. I've bought an apartment in the city where she studies, planning to settle down here. Unlike the previous life, my daughter is now strong-willed and very independent. She and Ben both graduated as top students from law school, ready to make their mark. Little did we know that the bullying incident back then had instilled in both children a determination to uphold fairness and justice from an early age. Watching my daughter dive straight into her career after graduation, sometimes I feel she's exhausted and wish she'd take a break. Given our family's circumstances, she wouldn't have to worry about making ends meet even if she didn't push herself so hard. But she always said there were more people's cries for help that needed to be heard. Watching her and Ben walk into the marriage hall, seeing my daughter pregnant, celebrating her 32nd birthday, this year's birthday celebration, I made it very grand for her. At the dinner table, she stuck out her tongue, showing she didn't understand. This year isn't my zodiac year, nor is it any special holiday, so why make such a grand fuss? Only I know in my heart that in my previous life, my daughter Giselle passed away at the age of 31. Now, I finally see my daughter safe and sound, living the beautiful life she was meant to have.